would work like, let's say someone would want some information that was in your interview. I'm not sure if there's enough of a cross-reference between the Denver Public Library and the Library of Congress for that to happen. So it's good you're doing it here, because then it'll be in two places.
Oh, good.
Is he in a good spot, or do you want to turn those chairs around? You want just like that?
Good volume.
Okay, great. Well, you know that when we start this, that I will say who I am, and then I will say, would you like to introduce yourself? And then you could say your name and your unit, and would you spell your name?
Certainly.
Okay.
Both, first or just the last name?
Just the last name. If people don't know how to spell Ed, we're in deep trouble.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi. This is Myrna Hampton, and we're at the Denver reunion. It's August 5th, 2007, and I'm talking to Ed Flabetich. Ed, would you like to start?
Yes, my name is Flabetich, spelled F-L-A-B-E-T-I-C-H. And I'm from Portland, Oregon. And
Your unit?
my unit was Company A, 86th, 10th Mountain Infantry. And that's it.
When you were in the war, did you have any, were you wounded in any way?
No, thank God. Scared, yes, but not close, but no cigar.
Do you want to talk about how you got into the 10th?
Well, yes. I had graduated from high school in 1942, in June of 1942. And I knew that, well, we had been hearing 18-year-olds have been being taken, so Christmas, day after Christmas of 1942, I was 18 years old, and my Uncle Sam called me to go to work. I had heard about the 10th Mountain Division. Of course, I'd skied and stuff like that, and I knew some of the fellows that had already gone. And we found out, there was 3 or 4 of us guys that found out about the 10th Mountain Division, and something about having to have 3 letters of recommendation. So we didn't know too much about it, but we did have the address. We had Minnie Dole's address. So we got 3 letters of recommendation, and to tell you the truth, I can't remember who wrote mine, and we sent them in.
Where were you living at the time?
Portland, Oregon. And February 8th, we were inducted, and I think it was the 15th of February 8th we were inducted, and it was, I believe, the 15th or so that we went to Fort Lewis, and I had our penny postcard that said, "You are eligible for the 10th Mountain Division." Well, somebody up at Fort Lewis kind of goofed. They sent all my buddies to the 10th Mountain Division. They sent me some crazy outfit down in St. Louis, the Air Force something or other, I can't even remember, but I no sooner got there. And anybody that had anything on his shoulder or on his sleeve, I shoved this card in their face, and finally they got fed up with me after about 10 days of that, and they shipped me up to Camp Hale, which I was very happy about, to join my own friends. And from there I stayed with A Company 86 all the way through till the day of separation.
What are your most vivid memories of Camp Hale?
Cold. And couldn't breathe at first. But I think, as I think back now, I would say just the place, the surroundings, the mountains. Of course, I always was, even from a little kid, I loved the outdoors. And that was outdoors to me, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun. Not only that, as time went on, probably the most important thing that I would say impressed me about Camp Hale was the fact that I met a bunch of great guys, wonderful guys that I always cherished, and I still do. Yeah.
Can you describe some of those great guys that you met as young men there in the
One of the
Camp
greatest guys and one of the nicest guys I ever knew in my life. And when I think of him, the tears still flow, is Sergeant Torkel. And the fellow that was killed with him, Art Tacola, who lived just across the river from me. But Torger was #1. He could be a AAA anywhere.
How would you describe him? What was it that was so appealing about him?
His demeanor and his laughter, everything was a song. You know, you go marching along a little ways, and all of a sudden you'd hear Torger starting to sing, and we'd all join in. And I remember when he was the charge of quarters at night, and his job was to wake us up in the morning. It was a whistle and a song, and you know, kind of, even though it was 5:30 in the morning, but still it was a whistle and a song that set you off. And another fellow that I had all the admiration in the world for, and I don't know how many guys had admiration for their first sergeant, but our first sergeant, Sergeant Stanley Whitelock, he was a guy that could chew you up and never use a word of profanity. And you think back now on it and how important that was, because we were all 18-year-old kids and didn't know much better, you know. And he was a great influence. I guess I could almost say that he was a great influence in my life because I respected him so much.
What can you describe your duties during training at Camp Hale?
Basic training, dig holes and and march and shoot and what else? Everything else.
Do you have a special vivid memory of the D series?
What I remember most of all, it was cold. And boy, I'll tell you what, I felt that it really made a man out of it, because you had to fight the elements and all that. But I don't know whether it was good fortune or misfortune. Toward the end of the D series, I got sick. And first time I ever went on a sick call. And I threw up and had a deep fever. And went on sick calls. Like I said, we were up at Cooper Hill. And I was really sick, and I went on a sick call, and I'm not going to mention the doctor's name because, for obvious reasons, but he checked me on. He said, nothing wrong with you, go back. And there was a guy that I'll never forget, came by and says, what's the matter, Ed? And I served Mass with him several times, and I said, boy, I'm sick. And he put his hand on my head, he says, I'm going to evacuate you. Thank God for him. His name was Rupert von Trapp. And I could always say that he saved my life, literally.
So did you go back down to Camp Hale?
Yeah, he evacuated me down. The next morning they took my appendix out.
Oh, that was what was the matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there was a guy that was shortly after me, as I'm told, I don't know for sure, this is all hearsay probably, died of peritonitis because he was told to go back to duty.
Where did you have that surgery done?
Right there at Camp Hale at the station hospital. Yeah, yeah. That's it.
And how about Camp Swift? What do you remember about Camp Swift?
It was hot.
Fond memories, I'm sure.
The fondest memory was when the day we got on the train to go to Patrick Henry. That was the best day. Yeah. But I had an experience down there too. And we were getting ready to go to overseas, and this was about 3 or 4 weeks before, and they discovered a cyst on my gum over my 3 teeth on the left side of my mouth, the upper side. And they had to take them out. I had to walk to the dentist about 2 miles, I think. And all of a sudden the word came down that I was told, came down that anybody that was missing teeth would not go overseas. So they hurry up and made a plate for me, which never did fit. I think I I think I wore it twice. But the guy that, I could still hear him on the phone, God love him, telling the surgeon that was making this fellow that was making the plate up, he said, get him ready, put anything in his mouth, but get him ready. It was Dr. Klein Fixit, who, when we got home, he was from Portland, we became real close friends. And I never forgave him for that in a humorous way.
So the good news of going to Patrick Henry and going to Italy, when you got to Italy, what did you think? You came in on the Argentina?
Yeah. And what I remember standing on the deck with Captain Boddington, God love him, and that man was unique, you know, and he was a world traveler even long before the war. And he's standing on the deck and he's pointing here and pointing there. There's the Hotel Excelsior, this, you know, it was, and then after that, we boarded trucks and went up to Camp Magnolia at the college there and slept on marble floors for a couple of nights at Christmas time, which was not comfortable. But it was, well, my background is ethnic. My parents came from what was then Austria, and they were actually Croatians, spoke the Croatian language. And I had a little background as to what ethnic people were like, and it was it wasn't really new to me, and so that was it. Yeah.
What was your initial impression of the Italians when you got into Naples?
Well, poverty was the impression I got. I felt that they were a loving people. I always knew that because I lived in a neighborhood of ethnic people. There was Jewish, there was Italian, there was German, there was Croatian, you know, and I had a little background on ethnic people, and I felt sorry for them. That was my impression of them, really. That was about it. I mean, to see a little guy begging you for a cup of coffee or a candy bar or something like that, you know, you couldn't help but be impressed with the poverty that they had, and that was about what really impressed me more about the Italians than anything else.
Was there any moving or kind of an experience that you had there with the little kids that made an impact?
Yeah, but they were looking for what am I going to say? Future. They were begging, and you know, and I had a little idea of what it was like because my father was in the Austrian army, and he didn't tell me many stories, but what few he did were say inspirational to me. I mean, I had a vivid. He was wounded and all that, and that's, I can truthfully say that I never saw my father cry. He only cried twice that I know of. The day I left and the day I got home. You know, he was happy. But the Italian people, I'm married to one, so they are a loving people. They can get mad at each other, oh boy, but when it's all over with, they're very close again. So the Italian people are good people. Yep.
And so you went up and you slept on this marble floor, and that wasn't too comfortable for several days?
23rd, 20. I think we were there 2 or 3 nights, I can't remember.
And where was that? Do you
In Magnolia, well, I guess today you'd call it a suburb of Naples. It was a college. It was the University of Naples. Yeah.
And then you got on
the Christmas day, we had Christmas dinner in a can. Came over, I don't know how many years before, but it was, I think I can't remember, but all I can remember was creamed turkey. And as I was eating, it was the first time I ever had seen a lady from hell, as they called them, in kilts. And he was about 3/4 wound up. And he had hands, I can remember this vividly, he had hands about twice the size of mine, a big man. And he says, where are you going? And I says, we're going up north. Oh, he says, kill a few of them. And that's all he ever said, and of course in his Scottish brogue. But it was an experience to be in a situation like that. Yeah, I'll tell you, it made me feel how lucky I was that even though it was just after the Depression and all that, that we weren't that bad off. It wasn't fun, but it wasn't home, but it was still better than poverty. Yeah.
Can you talk about your duties during the war? What did you do?
I became a BAR man and packed that 21-pounder around, and I didn't realize it till we were up in Stowe, Vermont 2 years ago. I picked one of those BARs up and I dropped it. I didn't know how heavy it was, but there again, I was probably 19 or 20 years old, and I could fight my way through a wall if I had to. So, yeah, and I was in the squad of guys, and that whole squad. Did you see that blizzard with the guys in the boxcar? Well, that's me in the middle, and it hurts to think about it, but there's only, as nearly as I know, there's only one guy left out of the group, and he's out there having breakfast, thank God. But yeah, it was. I was a BAR man. I followed the guy in front of me. I guess that's the way to put it. But that was it.
Can you describe the day before or the night before you went up River Ridge? Where were you staying?
We were in, oh boy, Varna, and we went up from there. And it was, yeah, the guys are saying that we didn't have ammunition in our guns because of the thought of it, you know, accidentally going off and alerting a lot of people. You know, I gotta tell you that a lot of that stuff is vague to me now. Maybe it's the good dear Lord has been good to me to put it out of my mind and not have to think about it. I think about the fellas that got it and all that, but oh yeah, I remember a little bit about it, but nothing in particular as far as the night before. Hey, everybody was apprehensive. It couldn't help but be. You know, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning or the next hour, as far as that goes. And so that was it, as far as I was concerned.
How did that mountain look to you?
It was dark, but it was really, I'll tell you, the only time I can truthfully say I really I've seen pictures of it, but to see it with the naked eye was in 1991 when we went over with the tent, and there was a mass up on Mount Belvedere, and you could look down and see that ridge. And to tell you the truth, to this day, I don't remember which end of it was. I think we were on the east end of it, and that's about the best. But really and truthfully, you know, when you're 18, 19 years old and you know you're going to face death, it's hard to remember a lot of that stuff. I don't know, maybe the other guys did. I know there's a couple of guys that could probably recite you the whole thing from the day you went in till the day you got out, but I can't. I mean, I don't know.
Do you have any memories of when you got to the top? What was the weather like? Or?
It was cold, and of course everybody told you that the fog rolled in, and we caught them in their underwear having breakfast, and that's about it. Yeah.
Did you eat their breakfast?
I can't remember.
Some of the guys.
I know they came back with a counterattack real quick, but as far as that's concerned. Yeah. But I think your dad probably did it the safest way he could possibly do it, because he was, as I remember, I didn't know him. I knew Hank all right, but when I talked to him, it was Colonel. You know, everybody talked about Hank with respect. Let me tell you, great respect, and he did it. I think he was a very compassionate man, and he went the route of compassion, and so I can always say I had great respect for it.
What do you think the most dangerous experience you had during the war?
You know, thinking back now, I'm sure there was a lot of them. But thinking back, the last day of the war, that's about as close as I came to getting any kind of a wound. I never got well, I did too. I got some rocks in my from this experience. It was the last day of war, and we were up in Nago, and our squad was going around a knoll, and we started to get small arms fired and bouncing around our feet, and we pulled back, and our squad leader, Peter Guimon, he was from Attleboro, Massachusetts, he crawled up on this knoll to see where the fire was coming from. So he called back for me, and I crawled up and had this has always bothered me. I still think of him. I had a replacement kid that was carrying ammo for me, and he came straight up, didn't have the experience that we did. And he got it right in the chest and took him right out. And probably that's the most, I'm going to have to say, that's the worst experience I think I ever had, is to have a guy die literally in your arms. That's the worst. That's got to be the worst. I know I probably had been shot at and whatnot. One night I remember I was on an observation post, two of them, really, now that I think about it. This was after River Ridge. We went back to Montecatini and got cleaned up. And then we went back up, and I forget who we relieved, I think B Company or somebody, at Casoliano. And and there was a patrol out from C Company that we didn't know anything about, and I'm sitting on this OP, and I hear this rustling in the brush, and I knew it was somebody going through, and all of a sudden I called the CP, and they were getting ready to call for artillery, and all of a sudden the guy didn't give me the password. And come to find out, oh God, I thought to myself after I thought it over, the guy that I knew at home, in fact we used to go out with the same girl, Lee Q, and he was leading the patrol, and I almost killed one of my best friends. Another time I was on an OP, and I think it was 3 or 4, the Germans were trying to get back through the lines, and I caught them, took them back to CP. That's about it, So.
Were you one of the companies that went, instead of through the tunnels at Lake Garda, you went over the
we went over the top. As I remember, I think we went, I can't remember now. Did we go partway in a duck or not? I can't remember that. But we were up on top of the ridge, looking down on Tarboli. And
that was an amazing climb.
Oh yeah, but didn't know any better. Just kept, like I said, I just followed the guy in front of me, and he led the way. And that night, though, this was the night before, I think this was the night before the war was over with, for us. There was a plane that came over, and he fired 2 rockets or 2 bombs, dropped 2 bombs or whatever. And he caught one platoon of B Company, 86th, and they got really hurt. Oh man, I don't think Captain Sigmund ever got over that. And the other one went into the hotel where Darby got killed. And it kind of grinds on me a little bit that they laud the fact that Darby was there. But there was another guy that was very important there, a guy named Tim Evans, Oxford graduate, brilliant kid. Captain Boddington said that if the guy would have lived, he'd have probably been a CEO of some major company because he was a brilliant kid. He got killed with Darby. And the guy that's out there in that atrium out there having breakfast, a guy named Warren Craig was down in the basement at the hotel when he got hit. So, well, really, if we didn't know that plane was coming over, we could have reached up and pulled it down. That's how close to the ground he was. But that was it.
And was that a German? That was a German.
German plane, yes. I think it was the last one they had in Italy. And, yeah.
And the decision to go over the top, as opposed to trying to go through the tunnels or going on those ducts, who was responsible for that?
I can't really tell you that, no, but the reason we went over the top was because the tunnels were blown out, and that was an interesting thing. Of course, when we went back in '91 to be able to drive through those tunnels, you know, it was really something. Yeah.
And to see what the hike that you guys took, I mean that was an Olympian hike. I thought that was more amazing than River Ridge.
Well, it might have been. I don't know. It was. I remember the next morning. Where was I going? I was going back with someone. I had eaten, and I met Chaplain Brendamill, and he was eating a can of a sea ration, and he wanted to share it with me. And now I just found out that his son lives up in Seattle, Washington. And, yeah. So he was a pretty good guy. Yeah.
What was your reaction when you found out the war was over?
You know, there again, I was on this is up north of Nago, and I think it was on that same hump that we got a little trouble, and we were doing some observing, and going up that valley, and of course in 1917 World War I they dug those holes up there and they put artillery up there. And I looked up there and I see two guys in one of those holes, and put the glasses on them, and I couldn't tell what kind of a uniform it was. It was a tan, as I recall, it was a tan uniform, and so I called it back, and within a few minutes they were firing up there, and I think they just put 1 or 2 rounds up there. Come to find out, it was 2 British observers, and shortly after that, just minutes after that, now I remember, they fired 1 round up there, and they stopped. I said, "Oh my God, what is it? We're going to get it." Well, then the word came down that it was a ceasefire. So there we are.
How did you celebrate?
I don't really remember. I mean, I think there was a great relief that we knew that things could still happen, but it didn't. But one of the scariest trip I ever had was Ed Mayer. Do you remember when they made those Viewmaster things? Well, Ed's dad invented that in Portland. And in fact, I'm still connected with his family through church and everything else. He was in a Jeep. Everybody was just roaming, having, relaxing, being able to rest. Ed says to me, he says, "I got to go up to 85. He says, "You want to ride with me?" I got a message for him. He was Colonel Tomlinson's radio man. And I said, "Got nothing to do with it. Coming back right away." He said, "Yeah, it's turnaround." We went up this road, and I was never so scared in my life. I says, "Mayor, if we get home, I'm gonna kill you." Because alongside the road were 88s and guys. See, they didn't take the ammunition away from the Germans.
Oh.
We did. They took the ammunition away from us. And I said, "Mayor, if I live through this, I'm going to hit you." but we did. It was another experience. That's the way I put it. Yeah.
What about your experience on the Yugoslav border?
Oh, I had fun there. That's
fun. How you celebrated, huh?
Well, really, I did. The partisans. Incidentally, my family comes from a small town in Buzet, which is between Fiume and Trieste. I found out in 1991 when I was over there, I lost 9 cousins with the partisans. Young, my mother's family. My dad only had one brother over there, but he didn't have a family. These were all on my mother's side. And anyhow, when we went up there, Colonel Green was looking for somebody who could talk Croatian. Well, at that time, I got to be honest, when I went to first grade at grammar school, I don't think I knew how to talk English, because my father and mother came over in 21, and they were ethnic people, and they talked the language at home. I knew it pretty good. In fact, they thought I knew it fluently enough to be a SS man. That's another experience. And Colonel Green was looking for somebody to kind of interpret for him. So there was three of us that were of Croatian descent. One guy was so shy he hid behind a tree anytime he got a chance. He was just a good guy. Tony Van Valensik, he was a good guy. And Whitey Pusovic, he didn't know the language that well. And I did, like I say. I mean, I knew the language, so I volunteered to interpret for Green. And it was an experience doing that, and that was kind of fun. That was kind of, I'm riding around with the old man, and I felt important. I was riding in the back end of his Jeep, and the guys in my company were laughing, thought I was, anyhow, that was kind of, it was shaky. It got to be pretty shaky for a little while. And remember one thing that they were, as I understood it now, that as close as I can remember, they wanted 500 more yards of territory going west into Italy, and Allied forces said no, all the way from Trieste up. And they said no, so that's how this all happened. But their CP was in a there was a school there, I think, and a hotel. I think it was a hotel or something. But their CP was in there, and Colonel Green, I can still hear him. He says, "That's enough." So he called regimental, and I guess regimental called division, and so on down the line, and they sent a company of tanks up. And this tanker pulled up with his tank into the courtyard, and he was wheeling his 90 millimeter around, and he hollered at me. He says, "Where's the CP?" And I says, "Down that hallway," and he pointed that thing down the hallway. So it could have been exciting, yeah. But then, of course, the guy that had all this garbage on his shoulder, I don't know what he was. He wanted to know where I was from. I said, "Portland, Oregon." He says, where are your parents from? I says, "Portland, Oregon." He says, no. He says, "Where are they from here?" And I said, looked at him, and I says, "How dumb do you think I am?" I said, "I'm going to tell you where my family comes from here." And I said, "You might go down and take them apart." He said, "You guys are smarter than we are." And it was shortly after that they moved out. We got to come home.
You want to tell a little bit about your SS experience?
Pardon?
You want to talk about your what did you say, your SS experience?
Oh, I was on furlough, and I came back, checked in. It was Friday night, and as I walked in, I forget who was the CQ that night. But anyhow, he says, "You got to be down at MTG tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock or thereabouts." I said, "What for?" I said, "I don't know." He says, "Here it is." So they jumped the Jeep, and they took me down there the next morning, and I walked in. I had to be in Class A uniform and all that, and walked in, and here was this lieutenant colonel sitting behind the desk. And right away I noticed that he had the adjutant's badge on. And he says, give him the salute and all that, and he says, "Give him name, rank, and serial number." He says, "I know that." He says, "It's right here in your, what was the W something form, whatever it was." And he says, "I understand you can speak Croatian," he said Yugoslavian at that time. He says, "Yugoslavian fluently." Fluently? I says, "I've learned it from my mom and dad. If that's fluently," I says, "that's it." But he said, "Can you read and write it?" I said, I can decipher it." I can decipher words, but to write it, no. Okay.
It's amazing.
He says, well, he says, and now I'm getting nervous. And he says, would you be willing to leave your unit? I says, I'd be reluctant to do that because I made so many friends and we're all buddies. And I said, no, I said, I don't think I'd want to leave. And he says, would you be willing to parachute behind enemy lines? And that's when my eyes lit up and my ears started to burn and I got scared. And he says, I'm talking to you about going back for the SS, what was it? CIC, or no, whatever it was. I can't remember what the letters were. Special Services, but I guess that's what it was. And he says, with Colonel Donovan, to learn how to work behind the lines. I said, no thanks. I said, I don't want no part of that. I said, I want to go home. And he says, well, he says, that's fine. He says, you can, you're excused. He says, but I don't want you to talk to anybody about this till after the situation is over. I can remember those words real distinctly.
Wow.
But who knows? I might have been a hero.
That was an offer you could refuse, huh?
Real quickly.
Do you have any other thoughts or experiences you want to share today?
Not really. I can truthfully say that, like I said before, it was a great experience for a young fella. Just like today, I've run into a few of the kids that are in the 10th now and whatnot, and see them as young kids, and I think I was looking in a mirror and seeing myself at that time. Great respect for them.
What do you think, being in the 10th, how do you think that affected your life?
How did it affect my life? It made a man out of me. I went in as an 18-year-old kid and I came out as a 21-year-old adult. But I think I was more of an adult at 21 than most guys that were 35 and never had the experience. That's the way I could put it.
Anything else you want to say?
No, not at all, but I think there was 3 people that I certainly admired in my career in the 10th was Colonel Hampton and Bill Boddington and Captain Niedner. Bill Niedner. I had great respect for those guys because they were, let's put it this way, they were human. They knew what humanity was. Let's put it that way. Yeah. That's it?
Thank you.
Is that all I got to do?
That's all you got to do.
You don't have to sign anything? Oh, okay.